Welcome to the Contagious Code Podcast, where we dive deep into code, learn practical skills, celebrate the beauty of engineering, and eliminate imposter syndrome. I'm Tejas Kumar, and I've been building on the web for over 20 years at places like Spotify, Zeta, Vercel, and more. Today, I'm joined by my dear friend Yoav Ganbar from Builder.io. Yoav is a developer advocate on the Builder.io team, and he fundamentally is concerned with Qwik. Qwik, that's Qwik, is the fastest user interface library builder on the web today. And the reason for that is it always ships a deterministic 1 kilobyte of JavaScript initially, always. So no matter how big your application is, it renders on the server and sends stuff to the client. By stuff, I mean like static HTML, and always just 1 kilobyte of JavaScript in something called the Qwik loader. From there, Qwik loads the interactive parts of your website incrementally as a user needs it. So it starts at 1 kilobyte and grows. And so the time to first load JavaScript and the time to first byte is usually much, much faster than the alternative. So in this episode, we go deep on Qwik, on Builder.io, which is a headless CMS, and how it compares to things like Sanity and Base Hub and others. And we also talk about other open source projects that Builder.io has built, things like Party Town, which is a way to run JavaScript, but like analytics trackers and stuff off the main thread. So again, it prioritizes performance, as well as Mitosis, which is a translation layer between components. So you write a UI component, a user interface component in Mitosis, in Svelte-like syntax, and it can then convert those components to React components, to solid components, to Qwik, to any other, to Angular, to whatever you want. So Mitosis is a great way to write a component once and build it for any other framework. And all of these components we learned in this episode are used by Builder.io in their SaaS, software as a service offering, which is a headless CMS. So it's a deep dive. We talk about Qwik, we talk about Qwik 2.0, we talk about how Qwik works, we talk about criticisms, we talk about complaints, we talk about praises. I can't wait for you to be a part of this episode. Now, I'd like to offer all of this to you at absolutely no cost, but there are costs involved. I mean, just look at this mic arm. For those looking at the video, it's an expensive mic arm. Just kidding, it's like $30. But there are other costs involved with post-production, with guest time, with my time, with all kinds of resources. And so how do we keep it zero cost? We have sponsors. So let's take a moment to thank the sponsors. And if you want to sponsor, reach out to me on X. This episode is sponsored by Code Crafters. Code Crafters is a great way to learn to code by rebuilding really powerful things that we use every day. So you could build your own Docker, build your own Git, build your own Redis. I guess you need to now since Redis isn't open source. And you can learn how to code by building these things from scratch in a language that you prefer, like TypeScript or Python or whatever it may be. You can get 40% off if you use the code that is tej.as/codecrafters. So if you go to tej.as/codecrafters, then you will be able to get 40% off. And whenever you feel like, you can start paying. And if you don't, you can just use it for free. So get Code Crafters today. Thank you for sponsoring this video. And now for my discussion with Yoav Ganbar. Yoav Ganbar, what a pleasure to have you on the Contagious podcast. We were together React Next, I believe in Tel Aviv last year, and now we're here. How are you doing?
Well, all considering, pretty good. All things considered.
Yeah. I mean, I can't begin to imagine how things must have changed since I was last there. I want to acknowledge you're in the middle of a literal war zone, and to hear you say, pretty good all things considered, it's especially powerful that you can maintain that mindset in the middle of it. So I applaud you for that. I acknowledge you for that. And I hope, despite the chaos, we're able to have a little bit of order here today. Maybe at best to take our minds off it. Maybe even better to inspire people to build great software that maybe even helps bring us closer to peace. And thank you. All that to say, thank you so much for making the time to come on here and share things that you've been working on with us. Yeah. For those who aren't familiar with your work as I am, would you be willing to share like a little bit of an introduction to yourself and what you've been up to? I know you work on Qwik, so all of that.
Yeah, sure. Always when I get asked this question, it's the question is to start from back to forth or forth to backwards, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll kind of do it that way because you mentioned I work on Qwik and I work at Builder.io as a developer relations engineer slash developer experience. Some people like to call it this way or that way. It all depends on the company and how you
Yeah.
view kind of the role. Yeah, so I've been builder a year and a half almost. Been working on lots of content around web development in general and stuff that's related to Qwik and the product. Doing our newsletter, all kinds of fun stuff, some streams here and there, conferences when I had the chance. But actually, the last conference I spoke at, which was actually my first international conference, was right when the war started, and then I had somewhat of a fun time trying to get back from Armada JS conference
Mm.
in Serbia back to Israel. So yeah, I had flights canceled, and I had to fly around Europe for a few days, and all whilst um, my 6-year-old kid and pregnant wife were at home. So it was quite an ordeal, but
Oh my
we've
goodness.
passed that and it's all good. And Armada JS was an incredible event. And shout out to Miroslav and the rest of the team for organizing such a cool conference. And it was really. But besides Builder, before Builder, let's go a little bit backwards. I used to work at Fiverr. I did help build a new product there within the company. So kind of we operated as a startup within a company, built a new kind of marketplace for the advertising industry and big brands, kind of connecting teams that are fit for a project, which was kind of cool. Sadly, that did not pan out in terms of macroeconomics and the way that the whole tech sector kind of dropped overnight. That project was put to a halt, but that led me to Builder. So, you know, uh, good things happen sometimes from bad things. Always look at the positive side.
Yeah, hopefully that's
And
true
yeah,
about this war, huh?
yeah, for sure. I'm a big believer and a big optimist. I'm hoping
Yeah.
things will get better in general. So yeah, so before Fiverr, I was in several other startups, some fintech. I was in travel tech for a while. Did some freelancing, and before that, I even did like marketing, SEO, e-commerce stuff. So I've been around the block, and I started using computers like back in the 80s, right? So since I was a ye little child, I
Yeah.
started playing around with the computer and just playing around with the BIOS and stuff just to get games to work. Uh, and somehow that led me to where I am today. I don't know.
Yeah.
I did study computer science like in high school, but I did not get a degree in computer science. I actually got a degree in philosophy and general studies,
Oh wow.
which, yeah, is a piece of information I don't know if many know. But I
It,
think it helped me kind of learn how to think about stuff, and it was fun. It was a fun time.
yeah.
And also during that time, also kind of a little nugget, I got a chance to be a webmaster for the Israeli Cartoon Museum.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Is that where your avatar on social media comes from? Like the cartoon version of you?
No, actually, the avatar is from Fiverr.
Ah,
Like when you start working at Fiverr, they just use one of the Fiverr freelancers to create an illustration.
that's so cool. You mentioned that you had this startup inside a startup at Fiverr, and
Hmm.
that didn't quite work out because of macroeconomics and market conditions. And you said that led me to Builder. How did that lead you to Builder? Like, did somebody find you at Fiverr and go, "Hey, come join Builder"?
Okay, so it's a funny story. So I've been doing kind of content, and just DevRel stuff that I didn't consider DevRel, but just for fun. So during my time at Fiverr is when I started my own podcast, called Fed Bites, by the way. Check it out.
Oh, cool.
Well, I haven't recorded in a while since all the shit hit the fan here, but it's something I definitely plan on getting back to. But I've put out some articles here and there, spoken at a few local meetups and whatnot. But I was always kind of active on Twitter, X now,
Mm.
right? I hate that I have to say the X part. It's always so annoying. Damn you, Elon. Never mind. So I kind of so during my time at Fiverr, one of the products I used as to just helping us get stuff done quicker was Builder.io. I discovered Builder.io through their open source. I've heard of Party Town before, and then I remember they're also a CMS, so I tried it out, and it was a great fit for our needs at the time, and I just integrated it into the product that we were building. And during that time, I was also just tweeting out a little bit, this and that. Got a chance to kind of catch some live streams with Steve Sewell, the CEO. Um, and while I integrated the product, I had a lot of feedback, so I just tweeted it out a little bit sometimes, and I got some responses. And then Steve reached out to me and was wondering if I would talk to their product manager to kind of give them feedback a little bit more privately and discuss something. And I got a chance to do that and talk to Jesse from the Builder team, and shout out and
Mm.
hi to him. Um, yeah, that kind of led to a few documentation changes in the Builder website that I know of. Like the whole part of blueprints. Blueprints are just a way of how you would use Builder within your product, and kind of how to structure it and how to think about it. It
Yeah.
was pretty cool. And then when I actually got the notice that the project is not, it was supposed to spin off to like a company. That was a plan. It was okay. Fiverr couldn't hold on to this thing, so they were gonna let us spin off and invest in it and allow us to go and kind of try and raise funds.
Mm.
There was some miscommunication between like the powers to be or whatnot, and in the end, contracts were not given, and everything kind of imploded. So from one day to the next, I was basically out of job, and then I just
Wow.
tweeted out, yeah, so what up? I'm free. What's up? And luckily for me, Steve reached out to me, and we started talking, and yeah, and that led me to work at Builder.
That's so cool. This is, I want to say here, like, kudos to Steve, right? Being this founder CEO who
Steve
cares
is
so
so
much
awesome.
about cares so much about the feedback of his product, where you're out there using it, complaining about it on social media, and he goes
Yeah.
like, "Hey, can what's wrong? Can we help? And not only can we help, can you like tell us even more how it's broken so that we can like talk to the product manager."
Mhm.
That is so cool. I think that's an active takeaway. This is some advice for I think founders and CEOs that we're sort of get like learning together here is active involvement in your project and its community, even at the CEO level, and being receptive to the negative stuff. I think is so key. We have another episode with Matthias Billman, the CEO of Netlify. Same thing. He was talking about how
Yeah.
in the beginning everybody says, "Hey, it's a bad idea. It's going to fail. Don't do it. What are you doing?" Because Netlify was super novel. They invented a lot of things. But once the abstract idea became more concrete, then people
Mhm.
started using it and had ideas. And he was like, "Okay, now I'm here for the feedback. Tell me." So I just want to acknowledge Steve. That was a good move, and it's such a good move that you got a talent like Yoav. Yeah, I also wanted to highlight here. You said something super valuable for the listeners, which is a tool, a practical like do this, and you can maybe get the job of your dreams or a good job like the one you have at Builder. And that is,
Mhm.
you said you were using it at work, Builder.io, and you were making content about it. And even like when things didn't work or when you had some feedback, you were tweeting it, and that led you here. So I think the takeaway is that can work. And not only does that work with you, that's reproducible. I know that's how Lee Rob, the VP of product at Vercel, got his job, right? He
Mhm.
was just making like Next.js courses and he got a
Yeah.
job. That's how I started to work at Vercel many, many years ago, right? And so, yeah, would you say that's something you'd recommend to folks listening?
Definitely. I wouldn't say like force yourself to do stuff if you don't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
But if it's something that interests you and you have this outlet you want to just and you feel the need to produce content or just write about your experiences or produce videos or whatever it is, just rant about it on your podcast, like
Yeah.
that's all cool. That it could lead to things. I'm not saying it's kind of a sure thing or a pathway towards your next job, but it
Yeah.
definitely can't hurt. Here.
Yeah, and I like that. Can we talk a little bit actually about the motivation there? Because like I have a hard time believing that you're tweeting these things, you're talking about Builder on your podcast with the motivation of like, hey, maybe they'll notice me and maybe I'll get a job, or with the motivation of, um, I'm doing this because this will get me cash. Um,
Well, I never think these things through. I am so not like premeditated about it. I
yeah,
just go with the flow. I do what I feel like, and that got me to where I am. And I feel like that is part of also what makes a good dev role in general, just being
yeah,
authentic, right? Just shooting off your hip the things that you might do. Sometimes it might be a spicy take that may get you some fire,
yeah.
but sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to hear because I tell you what, I'm noticing some type of like surge in the industry of people like, and I'm trying to be respectful here, of people, creating content because this is the hot thing to do and this is going to like make me successful. Um, and I just feel like that's a really big uphill battle because maybe you don't even enjoy making content. I can tell you, like, I don't do this podcast because I want to like earn a ton of money from sponsorship. It's actually an extremely thankless job sometimes, right? Because I'll spend like on a Friday, I'll spend like 4 hours to 6 hours just like recording, and these conversations are intense. They're very focused. Um,
Yeah.
and then I edit, and it's an enormous amount of effort for no compensation other than people go like, "Hey, you helped me learn something." So, um, and I think that's fine because I actually believe in the work. But if I was doing this with the motivation of like I'm going to be like super successful with this, I feel like I would just be unhappy
No, no,
because
no.
success takes
You're
time.
also like you're a stickler. You edit your stuff. Like my podcast, I just have the conversation recorded on like even on Zoom, right? And then just put it out. I
Yeah,
hardly edit at all.
yeah, yeah. No, I do a lot of work. I'm slowly starting to automate a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of AI engineering, and
Hmm.
the hope is I do receive like enough return on investment from this that I can hire a small team and make it sustainable because it is not sustainable. If
Yeah.
we don't make some type of income this year, then it's just not going to be sustainable. And anyway. But without talking too much about the podcast, I think that's really cool that Steve found you this way, that you joined Builder, and now you're as part of as a you're you're part of the Builder team. I will not edit that out. It's
All
authentic.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
so Builder, famous among front end and web engineers for Qwik, but also tools like Party Town and Mitosis. It's an ecosystem. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the ecosystem of Builder, and what you work on specifically.
Well, the ecosystem of Builder and the beauty of it is its diversity, right? We have SDKs for all the front end frameworks that are powered by another open source library we have, which is Mitosis, like you mentioned. And
Sorry to interrupt
that
you, but could we maybe start with what Builder even is? I realize you said it's
right.
beautiful and you have
Sorry.
SDKs, but no, that's okay.
Yeah,
I didn't
sorry.
ask.
Yeah. All right. So, what is Builder? Builder is a visual headless CMS. It's a visual no code tool that helps you build websites or sections of your website, and it is framework agnostic. So, what you can do is basically have components. You can have one builder component that then you put within your code base, and that is controlled by the actual product, by the SaaS. So you have a visual editor where you can drag and drop buttons, columns, images, and whatnot into it. And it lives within your code base, but also lives on build.
Is it?
But
Uh, oh yes.
go ahead.
Let me know when it's safe to ask questions. I find this really interesting.
All right, and the beauty of it is not only that you have the ready-made components in Builder, but you can actually register components from within your code base to be used at Builder. And that way, you as a developer can actually offload work that you've done or work that you don't want to do in the future to like mundane stuff like changing text or colors or moving stuff around on a hero section, and you can just allow marketers or other developers that might be just working on that section to control it. And this is all like deployable by a click of a button, and it's pretty awesome.
So it's. Can I say back to you what I understood, and you can tell me where I'm wrong? I do that quite often on
Yes.
the podcast. So what I hear is it's like Wix, or Squarespace. Hang on, but you have USPs, you have differentiators, and so it's a visual website builder. So builder.io, it's in the name, but it's also a headless CMS
Mm-hmm.
where you store the data for my components, and my components can live in my code. I could actually, so from my perspective as a developer, look,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like a I'm not a website marketing person. I'm a developer, and by website marketing person, I mean somebody who like logs into a headless CMS and like types in a visual editor. I actually really don't like visual editors. Okay, and so what I'm hearing the value to developers for Builder.io is I could build my entire website with React. Fully in code, and then if I have like a list component that lists a bunch of blog articles, and you click on the list item and you go to a detail page, I could at a later stage say, cool, this looks good. Now get your data from Builder. Is that and then Builder sort of becomes the controller of my component. So this is binding from the code base to Builder, but also Builder offers the other way around, right? Where you build your components in Builder, and then you can like generate code from them. Is that accurate? Where did I mess up?
No, you did not mess up. That is actually accurate. You can create components within Builder, and they are as performant as they can be, and the team is working really hard always to kind of make the components as more performant as they can. But the beauty, again, is this dynamicism you have between the two.
Yeah.
And also, like you mentioned, you can also store your data in Builder. So besides things like text and general database information or data you need about whatever products or, I don't know, blog posts and whatnot, you could also like store media. So Builder also has the offering is a part of the product is the CDN. So if you upload images or videos, you also get CDN served fast at the speed of a CDN, which is great. Like instead of hooking it up all yourself and trying to do like a server and
how would I bind a component I've written? So the scenario here is I've built a website not with the visual editor. I've written all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React myself, and now it's time to connect my list component to Builder. In the traditional
forget about Builder. Okay, let's say you have a website, you built it in React, you want to integrate Builder.
Yeah.
Let's start from that point. Okay. So lately we've made strides in improving the developer experience because it was lagging a bit, if I'm honest. And about, I think, 6 or 7 months ago, we came out with the Builder Dev Tools that streamlined the process of kind of connecting the dots of all this things. Because in the past, what you needed to do was create a Builder account, go and get your API key, go and install specifically the Builder SDK, and then the SDK that is right for React, and all these kind of hoops and steps you needed to take. And Adam Bradley from the Builder team, who is also one of the developers that is responsible for Qwik, and the creator of Party Town, by the way, came with this great idea of writing a Vite plugin, which is actually a CLI that hooks up all the connected pieces that you need to do this. And now with Builder Dev Tools, you can basically just run npm builder init, and that'll take you through kind of a flow.
Do you mean npx builder init?
npx, sorry, yes, npx, okay. If you're right, builder init, and you can start a project, and that'll take you through kind of a UI even that is part of the package to connect you to Builder. Open up even like if you don't have a username, that'll take you to create a username, and that'll also bring you into the editor like after you've done stuff. And also the dev tools itself is like there's an overlay over your code base, and you can register components like with a UI with the click of a button, like instead of what you had to do before, which was manually like going into your code base and registering it very via like a config API, and have like a JSON where you kind of mark according to specific properties where things need to go. So this is now done almost automatically just to register components from within your code base back over.
Wow.
And there's it even generates TypeScript types.
So let me again say that back to you so I understand. Traditionally, I would, if I wanted to like bind my list component with just like static HTML to a data source, it would be a server component, be an async component. I fetch from a database, I get a list, I render it like UL, and then children is li, list items.map, and then with Builder, I would run npx builder init, and I would get this visual UI that shows me what would first, if I don't have an account, I would make an account. If I do have an account, I log in, and it's like, welcome to your Builder dashboard. And and then would it run my website, and then I can like get this overlay and click on a component that I want to connect to Builder, and then select like this component maps to that data, and that's it, and then it generates code for me.
No, so here I might have confused you a little bit on that part. The way that the DevTools work is only hooking you up and giving you a page where you can edit and understand how it works.
I see.
If you're talking about your list component that you already
Yeah.
have within your code base and you
Yeah.
want to register it, so during like the welcome screen, you will have like your components, unregistered components. So it
Yeah.
reads from your code base and will have that list
Wow.
component, and then you can bind it right to Builder.
Wow.
Then within Builder, you drag that component to list item, and you will have your actual props that you define within your code base, like to fill in with just an input inside the Builder
Wow.
UI.
Does that support just React, or other things, Solid and Svelte?
React,
And
Solid, Svelte, Vue, Lit, almost
that's
all
so
of them.
cool.
Qwik,
Wow.
obviously.
Okay, so I do npx builder in it, and I just get a list. It reads my code base, it understands the props, and it helps me map them. That's so cool.
Yeah, I actually had a stream about just showcasing that with the Next.js, and I had a stream with Jack Harrington, which was
cool.
pretty cool. So I kind of just let him drive and try it out while he gets mind blown, and I just tell him what to do.
We should
That's kind of fun.
should do that stream at some point off podcast, maybe on a different medium. That would be so fun. I would enjoy. I just don't see the like applicability of Builder to me, because I don't ever need a visual
That's
editor.
fine.
So I guess I'm not in the target market, right? But for
No, again, let me put it this way. It's a tool to enhance collaboration of bigger teams.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's right. That's so good, because I feel like there's a lot of like solo developers listening who are going like, yeah, but when? And the answer really, so I can see the perfect use case for Builder in an old job. So in 2013, I was working in a company called Grow, and it was a creative brand agency, a digital agency.
No doubt.
And I was the
Yes.
lead for digital work. And that would be absolutely perfect. In fact, what we were using back then was WordPress with WP API, so the JSON API. And it was that, but without all the cool like binding to your components and understanding props. And so it's like WordPress with WP API and maybe WooCommerce plus, right? At least to the solo developer. Awesome. Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for. I think this is the clearest breakdown of Builder that I've personally heard, but I'm biased because it's my podcast. So let's now talk
worth
about
noting, worth noting that you can connect like Builder to any kind of other CMS or other APIs. So if you want to pull data from like external data points, so from WooCommerce or from a WordPress site, and bring them over to Builder, it's just a webhook away.
Is there webhook support?
Yes.
You said it's just a webhook away. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So I could even like do fancy things like on git push. I could have it pull like just a bunch of markdown documents from my repo and use that as the data source as well. In theory, that's so cool.
In theory, yes, that might require some manual setup, but yes.
Yeah.
In theory, yes.
I'm here for the manual setup.
Maybe like Notion API and connect it to Builder. That could be interesting to try.
That is so cool. I think if I ever do like, I have done some consulting projects for, products and websites maintained by very non-technical people. And so far my go-to has been, I don't know, I'll just put all the data that's going to change in Airtable. They love Airtable usually. And I'm just going to give you an Airtable. But this is definitely my next, the next time a project comes, that's what I'm going to do, just to try it out and have my mind blown like Jack. We should maybe get Jack on the podcast as a side note.
Oh, for sure. Jack's awesome.
So we had Builder.io. Builder.io is the company that offers this. That's how you make money to fund other things like the open source. Of course, Builder also uses the open source work. You mentioned Qwik, you mentioned Party Town, you mentioned Mitosis. Now that we understand Builder in detail, let's talk about that ecosystem.
All right. Where do you want to start? How does it all fit in, kind of, into the product? Or
maybe we can talk about where they came from, because Builder is this business that started with a goal. We're going to offer this product that you just defined. Okay, it's cool. We're going to offer this product. Now you could technically just build this entire product with Remix and some database as a server. So like the decision to invent, no, we're going to make Party Town, we're going to make Qwik, we're going to
So
create
the
these things de
motivation
novo.
actually behind it.
Yeah,
So
and that led to the ecosystem today. Yeah.
yeah. So the motivation behind like the way, again, this is how Steve tells it, and I hope I'll paraphrase him right when I kind of say this. So the idea is like this. Clients and in general, users of Builder, the way that the ecosystem is supposed to help them is Builder, the visual head of the CMS, is supposed to help you with your first party content. And then Party Town is supposed to help you with third party scripts. Worth mentioning what Party Town is, maybe just for a second. Party Town manages third party scripts. It actually takes stuff like Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel and whatnot off the main thread by using a very kind of nifty, magic-y tricks of moving
Yeah.
stuff to a web worker and mimicking the DOM and sending over events. We'll not get into that, but it, in the end of the day, it just frees the main thread and lets the browser do what it's supposed to do, which is render HTML and be ready for user interaction. And then Mitosis is actually what powers the SDKs and does all the transformations for the different frameworks. Also, Mitosis is what powers now Visual Copilot, which is our Figma Design to Code plugin, which uses AI and Mitosis. We have to kind of transform all those stuff. So right now you have a plugin in Figma that you have a design and you can just mark it, use Builder plugin, push a button, and that'll create like the HTML and CSS to any kind of design almost you want, and it'll automatically give you responsive styles, which is really cool. And now with the Visual Copilot V1, it'll even try to use components from within your code base. So if you have a design system and you have your buttons and labels and whatnot, navigation tabs, breadcrumbs, if you have some sort of design that has something that is similar to that, it'll try and use that and generate the code with the component code. So again, the ecosystem is to allow you to deliver experiences faster.
Well, it's also to, it seems like it's to allow Builder.io to allow you to build, because Builder.io offers, I guess, the big metric that everybody considers when doing headless CMS work is performance. And you want to be able to say, Builder.io websites are like 10%, 90% faster than the rest of the websites. And what helps that is moving work off the main thread, especially like non-essential work like pixel tracking and so on. And what helps your users develop cross-platform, truly cross-framework applications is a layer like Mitosis, right? Which, as I understand it, it takes a data structure like a JSON object that represents a component and then can translate it across frameworks to a React or a Solid or a Astro component or a Svelte component. Right. Mitosis is that like translation layer. So this helps
and
Builder.
Also, there's also kind of Sveltosis, which is Svelte style syntax. Sorry, I cut you off and keep going, but there's one thing I forgot to mention.
But what I'm lost. So like what I remember from Mitosis. No, that's good. So what I remember from Mitosis is it's JSON. So what I'm hearing is you can actually write components in Mitosis in Svelte style syntax and then transpile those to other UI library primitives.
That is correct.
Components. Wow, that's so cool. Okay, and all of these are in aid of Builder. So tying it back to the motivation.
So one more aid of Builder that I forgot to mention that we mentioned but haven't said is Qwik. And Qwik is supposed to give you like the best first party code and the most performant of them all to help you build websites without the need of Builder to have fast websites.
This is so cool. Okay, so if we draw a line from like Builder to the ecosystem, it's really you identify we're going to need to create this thing and it's going to need to be fast. And it's going to need to work across frameworks. So you came up, not you, but I guess the team came up with these requirements, and you went like,
it's mostly Steve started it, by the way. Like Steve was the madman genius that started this whole thing and started Mitosis. He really is prolific.
That's so awesome. And so then you go, what's the best way to get there? And it's we're going to need, we're going to need to find a way to run things off the main thread. We're going to need a way to translate components, and we're going to need a way to make the fastest UI updates of all time and solve the problem of hydration, and that's Qwik. So That is really cool. I'll just plug here. I did a podcast episode with Mishko, so the creator of Qwik, for PodRocket. I'll put a link in the show notes where he talks in detail about the Party Town mechanism, how you actually copy events from a worker thread that doesn't know anything about DOM to the DOM and so on. So I'll put a link in the show notes for those who want to listen to that. But let's talk about Qwik, because we talk about Qwik a lot on the podcast in various episodes, but it'd be nice to hear it from like the lion's mouth, so to speak, or the horse's mouth. Is that what they say? Maybe we can. Maybe you're not a horse, Yoav. That's let's hear.
Thank you.
Let's hear it from the.
That is my profile pic on WhatsApp. I have.
Is it really? That's so cool.
Yeah, I went in Purim, which is the equivalent of Halloween. I went as BoJack Horseman, so I had a horse head. And since then,
wow.
I have that avatar image there.
I don't know how I landed so close to something true, but here we go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Qwik. Let's talk about the core principles of Qwik and its unique selling points. And so let's maybe, again, talk about it through, let's draw a line from now Qwik to its implementation. And what I want to do here is, I think we can all agree that the very definition of engineering is applying technology to solve problems. Applying technology to solve problems. That's engineering. And Qwik is a piece of engineering. So it's an application of technology, I have to assume, to solve problems. I guess the question is, what problems does it solve? Because there's a status quo. There's React, there's Angular, there's Svelte, right? Qwik is this new thing. What was it made to address?
Well, I think the right person to ask this question always is Mishko, but I'm going to try and speak as Mishko, or at least I'll tell you my side of it and how I do it. Right? So Qwik came to solve two issues as I see it. One is a problem of hydration, and we'll define hydration in a second for listenership here. And the second problem is just constant need to improve performance of a JavaScript application. Now, to solve the problem of hydration, and hydration is the process of most front-end libraries work to kind of recover their state from the server when they're server-side rendered. So React, for example, and Next.js, while you generate the HTML on the server, right, you ship it to the client, and then on the client, it needs kind of to wake up the framework, so it has to reattach all the event listeners. That means a lot of JavaScript needs to run, and that is what is called the hydration part. And Qwik aims to solve this by not having that step at all and using this concept called resumability. But I think the better way to kind of define it is that Qwik uses JavaScript streaming to actually solve this problem. And why do I say JavaScript streaming? It's the best analogy that we've come up with to explain how Qwik works is like video streaming, right? In the past, and hydration frameworks, this is kind of the equivalent, in order to like watch a video, say you want to watch the last 10 minutes of a video, you would need to download the whole video file, wait till all that video file downloaded, play the video, scroll over to the last 10 minutes, and from that point on, you can watch it. But nowadays, we have stuff like Netflix, Amazon Prime, all those streaming services where you can just continue to watch from the exact same point where you stop. And Qwik takes this concept into the way it streams JavaScript. So it only brings in the JavaScript you need when you need it. So an application written in Qwik can start exactly from the point it stopped on the server. And all the HTML is generated on the server and comes with all the data and information it needs serialized into the HTML. So that way you could just know exactly what was done on the server and continue and resume it on the client. And this is all part of the philosophy of also automatically optimizing for you, right?
Yeah.
So this is the second part. And what led, like, I don't know about you, but I don't know if you've ever had to kind of try and get to a green score in Lighthouse or try and improve Core Web Vitals, but it's very hard work to get a website or a JavaScript app to be more performant. And usually it has to do with the way a framework works or the way that you're loading a JavaScript, and you have to start lazy loading, this and that, and you have to start like deciding where boundaries of lazy loaded components are. And with Qwik, the philosophy is you don't need to think about it. Actually, the framework itself has lazy loaded boundaries for components everywhere. So everything is almost async within the Qwik framework. And that way you're not hogging the main thread almost never. And your JavaScript is only executed when it's lazily executed. Not lazily loaded, but lazily executed. It gets generated into your cache via service worker. So you get all the chunks, all those little packets of JavaScript you want to stream in, and they only stream in once that there's an interaction and they're needed. And then it kind of fills in, and then it keeps on going with like the video where you stop and continues. So yeah, I hope that was clear. That maybe
that's super clear. I again will do the thing where I say back to you what you said to me, and you can correct me. The issue
I'm gonna start you doing the same thing, man.
Yeah, it's just helpful because then the listeners also get like two explanations, and if one is wrong, which may be theirs, then we correct it together. So it's just a healthy way I've found for learning. So the problem with hydration is that you download the JavaScript.
You're doing the same work twice.
You're doing the same work twice. Because you're rendering components on the server, and then when you hydrate, you're rendering all of them on the client as well one time. Is that okay? That's the work twice. I guess there's that for sure, but there's also the latency between time to interactive, right? There's a sort of like dead zone with hydration, where when you get a server rendered piece of markup on your client device, you have to wait for the JavaScript to download and then for the event listeners to bind. And that wait, sometimes I've clicked on things and nothing happened, and I'm like, oh, come on, you guys. Like your server rendering, so your time to first byte is fine, but now your time to interactive sucks. And it sounds like resumability is the solution to that, where you get back a 100% static string with all of the data for only that specific page present serialized in the DOM. So my question was around like, is that not just sort of still presenting the latency problem, because then you just serve a larger HTML payload, but HTML can be streamed. That's one thing. And also it's just for that page. It's not like a huge amount of data. So it should be fine in theory. And so you get a fully static thing, and you make it interactive on demand. So if you, for example, you don't ship on-click handlers that need to bind, but Qwik, how does that binding work? Because things need to be interactive at some point. I guess this is where I'm losing it.
Okay, so what you have is there is 1 kilobyte of JavaScript that you need to load always on any Qwik application, and that is the Qwik loader. And what it is basically a global event listener that just listens to all the events that you have on the DOM. And then through the data you have within the HTML, and we'll get to how when we talk about the future of Qwik, I'll share some cool stuff.
Cool.
But as soon as you click on it and you have that information in, then that event listener can have the information it needs to which kind of file it needs to map to and bring and execute.
Okay, and there's some type of protocol, like dependency graph, that comes with the website. So the first load is this 1 kilobyte of JavaScript, but also like this manifest, so to speak, of like this button maps
all
that thing
kind
need
of
to.
Yes, the packet, and there's actually kind of pointers to which is what, and there's it is it's hairy. It's hairy in terms of how it works behind the hood, and I've read the source code, try to understand it. I'm still, even though I've been inside the Qwik code base for a while, there's some parts I don't understand completely. I understand how it works in general, but like the exact place and where it happens, I'm still sometimes like losing myself.
I can see. So now that you explain it like this, I could see how one could build Qwik. Because what you would do is at the time of rendering or building or server rendering, you would look for all occurrences of the dollar symbol for events, so on-click dollar, right? And you'd be like, okay, maybe you have like a transpiler like Babel or something to transform the code. And you would
we have a compiler called the optimizer, which is written in Rust.
I knew it. And so what this thing would do is find the dollar symbol and go like, okay, the next function after this, I need you to split it out into a module, store it somewhere on a CDN or and I guess this is where you would have adapters. So like Vercel, Netlify, whatever, they would put it wherever they put stuff. And then you replace that closure, that on-click function, with a function from the Qwik loader to like load that thing, right? And then you would create a big manifest of all these modules, and also ship. Okay, this is not really. I see the dots connect. Put it that way. This is, a big criticism I get from Qwik is it's way too magical. I don't trust it. But what we're doing here together is we're demagicifying it, so that developers trust it more. And I could see now how the pieces fit together. I wonder though. Sorry, go ahead. Were you going to add something?
Yeah, I'm going to add something that besides also understanding like which actual chunk and like packet of JavaScript you're missing and you know what to load, is think about there's also another a cool project and part of what Mishko did is called Quick Insights, which
Mm,
is a way to understand basically that manifest you talked about, which is needed to actually like serve the initial page and like what's above the fold. So in theory,
wow.
right, and this is still being worked on, and this is when we talk about the future quit, it can use AI to understand which is more likely to be interacted with by the user, and that way have those pieces of JavaScript ready and kind of warm to go and already even maybe lazily executed before there's an interaction there. And then by the interactions of a user on the page, it can kind of um what's the word I'm looking for? Understand
Yeah.
what is the chunks that it needs to kind of take a user through a specific flow. And
Yeah.
this is all part of the philosophy of making it more automatic. Right, it is magical, but on the parts where you as a developer would have to do it manually to get to kind of that
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. About the magic, I think this like weighted dependency graph of, as you call it, packets is actually quite cool. And I think like a really naive implementation of this, even with AI, but like rule based AI, is the layout components and their listeners way more than the page. That's the start, right? And then you could look
Mhm.
at order of occurrence. Since you have the REST based compiler, just order of occurrence, and you can prioritize the ones above higher because they're likely above the fold, etc. That's cool. I look forward to seeing what shakes out there. I wanted to ask about addressing the claim that because it's so magical, it's like scary, because what happens when it breaks? What happens when it goes wrong? The expectation then is developers need to get in the weeds and sort of look behind the curtain of magic, and then they're going to get lost and be like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. And this is the fear. This is a legitimate fear I've heard from the community, right? Because it's the
Mhm.
more magic, the harder the debugging experience. And so I'm curious if you could talk about I mean, you've probably built a site or two with Qwik. What's the debugging experience like?
So it's still being worked on, right? It always has to do with the depending on what kind of edge case you hit, right? There's some things that maybe we haven't hashed out, like V1 was back in May, right? And maybe it's worth noting that we're on a road towards V2, and there's kind of a refactor to kind of make all that magic a little less magical and more coherent in terms of the code base itself. And we'll get to maybe it is important that we kind of note that we're going towards Qwik 2.0, hopefully soon. Also, some big news that we dropped yesterday about Qwik is basically that Qwik is becoming even more of a community-driven project, and it is mostly because of feedback that we got from the community, right, about what they felt like and what they wanted. And they wanted a bigger ecosystem. They wanted Qwik to kind of move faster, and they wanted to understand the code base more so they could contribute. And that is part of why the refactor is to make it more coherent and kind of pull the curtains away again, right? And make like the things behind the curtain a little bit more tidy so you'll understand what's going on there. All right, and
I
now
think
I
that's
lost what you asked me.
No, that's fine. I asked about the debugging story, but it sounds like it's not perfect right now. That's acknowledged by the Qwik team, and it's being improved. I think this is cool because for you as a developer advocate for Qwik, the extended focus on community means more fun things for you to do. So I find that really. I mean, I already picture like the workshops of like, hey, let's understand Qwik internals and so on. Um, that's super great. Can we talk about so Builder.io? This whole app is probably like the premier like production app of Qwik. I'm assuming it uses Qwik on like for the
Well,
product.
you're assuming mistakenly. The
What? You guys don't use the thing
yes.
you build?
Okay, so it is a work in progress currently. The app is currently written with Next.js and React and MobX and TypeScript. And then that is all because, it has been around for what is it, 5, 6 years since Steve started the project. So, Qwik was not around back then.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had to get to market and have a working product. So obviously it was within then. And then the cost of migrating is always, when are you going to do something? We already have paying customers. You already have kind of this moving rocket ship. You don't want to change its wings and engines while you're doing it. So there is work being done on kind of migrating slowly different parts of the app. So like the homepage of the website and like marketing pages and whatnot are being moved over to Qwik. And it's still a process. It is a
Yeah.
process. But ideally it would be with Qwik. But then again, right, where Qwik
Yeah.
shines is for mostly like user-facing content, which is important to serve as fast as you can and make them instantly interactive. Now, while you're using the SaaS product, that's not necessarily the case, right? You're usually like behind the login screen or whatnot,
Yeah.
and then you want some sort of SPA mode, and then there's nothing wrong with all the rest of the things. Like React is awesome, right? Vue is awesome. All these technologies are great. They work. It's not that they don't work. It's not that they're problematic. They all kind of inspired each other and are making each other better all the time. And this, and maybe it's important to also kind of mention that Qwik was also inspired by different and various frameworks. One of them, which is and a very interesting kind of story and how it ties in right now, is Qwik was inspired by an internal framework that Google had called Wiz.
Yeah.
And if any of you have watched, and I'm guessing that you've watched ngconf announcement and the Angular team announcement, that Angular, besides bringing in signals lately to their ecosystem, which Qwik has inside its system, which was inspired by Solid, because Ryan Carniato is the godfather of signals, and it's a great idea. And Mishko really liked it, and he put it in Qwik. So Angular got signals, and now Angular is joining forces and actually combining Wiz with Angular to bring resumability into Angular. So it's just super cool, and
Yeah.
how kind of this bed of creativity of all these web frameworks and the JavaScript family, as one of my peers, my Qwik community DevRel guy, Shai Resnick, likes to put it, JS family for the win.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful that I feel like that what you just did there was prime DevRel work. Like if I was your manager, you'd hear about this in the feedback meeting, going like that was a good move.
You listening, Steve? Are you hearing that? No.
Yeah, give him a raise, Steve. No, but that's because like it's I think really DevRel becomes disingenuous and less trustworthy when it's just like use my thing because it's better. And also it becomes disingenuous when it's not just use my thing because it's better, but we're better than everything. We're faster than everything. And I think this is such a great distinction you make, because I've gone on record multiple times on this podcast and at conferences to say that Qwik is, without question, the way to build the fastest UIs on the web today with the least amount of effort. And I think that's a true statement, like because of this deterministic, like 1 kilobyte first load JavaScript. And still, you're making the case for, yeah, but maybe you don't need that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I wish I would hear similar things from, for example, React. I feel like right now React is all in on server components. It is the best way, it's the only way, and so on. But I somehow that doesn't feel right, because as you mentioned, if you're doing some type of like internal SaaS product, like do people care about loading spinners on the client side? I don't know. And I'd love, maybe we should get someone from the React team to come and like argue with me, but I don't get it at this point in time.
Yeah, it's a great step forward. React server components are great in concept, and they're moving. Again, they're somewhat of a step forward and somewhat of a step backward. If you know what I mean? Because they're not advancing in generations. They're like going back to, again, we're getting kind of PHP with this within our JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that it has to be static, again, there's a lot of also miscommunication of what it is and what it's good for, and I understand it. It's a hard kind of, not problem, but it's a hard thing to explain. right?
Yeah.
And it's not just because of that that Dan Abramov has been around and doing around everywhere and trying to explain how it works and what is it good for, and always kind of comes to a weird use case of if you want a markdown file that you load from your computer, but you don't, and then I'm like, I lost you, man.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
cool. You can encapsulate logic and get data from the server and have this little Lego piece like we've always known and loved from the world of components in React that you could just plug in and it'll have all its data to cool, awesome. That's a great way to put it. And I think Sam Sailkoff in what was it, the NextConf, was it, that he
Hmm.
showcased and kind of showed off and talked about this idea of the Lego block coming back.
Yeah.
I think it's great, but then
Yeah.
again, there are so many constraints and a very big mental shift that people that have been working with React for a long time have a hard time coming to terms with.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it's a after people develop 10 years of building client only applications, you go, wait a second, re-architect your application. And you maybe don't have to re-architect your application, but you still need to use a framework because a framework does architect your application. And it
Yeah.
gets really interesting because I'm actually teaching a React sort of course with O'Reilly at some point, and I was trying. It's for absolute beginners, right? So I was trying to think about, okay, let's create a React app from scratch, no framework, and I could make it work insofar until I needed initial data from the server. And then I was like, oh, what do I do here? How do I
Mm.
fetch the first data? Because traditionally, even though it was maybe wrong, it was you write a use effect, you fetch a use effect, and then you set it into state. That was like the
Yep.
way. It's got multiple problems with it, like network waterfalls, leaking authorization headers. It's just not the best way. Um, but what's the alternative? Oh, you need a server somewhere. It wouldn't then. So then, do I start teaching these beginners about servers? And it's a very strange story right at this point
It
in
is,
time.
but although I think that just the story for beginners, it's actually better for them, in my opinion, again, to learn about the server as well as the client. I think it's paramount as a web developer, whether, and I don't believe in this thing called React developers. You're not a React developer. You're a web developer that knows only React, and
Yeah,
that's an issue, and maybe it's right for for beginners and newcomers to web development, if they're learning React now, yes, learn about the server first. Learn about
yeah,
RCs because it'll make you understand this
yeah.
whole request response model and how things work and how the interweb works.
Yeah.
And I love, by the way, your episode that you went down and dove deep to transistors and how the web works, and you
Thank
really
you.
went down to the atoms and build it up. A great episode, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I try to do in this podcast is draw lines from, okay, how do we get from there to there? How do we get from RAM to an operating system? And that's I'm a huge fan of that approach. Thank you for the compliment. About this whole server thing, I think you've unlocked a really great teaching heuristic because back in my day, at the risk of sounding old, web development was UI, web UI development. The distinction was UI. jQuery,
Mhm.
MooTools, Scriptaculous, this is all just front end, client side only. At some point, the server became an important piece, and I was removed from that until I had to learn myself. But I know a lot of people today, I speak to a ton of people, as you can imagine, on this podcast, at conferences. People go, they hear these jokes about like React is the new PHP.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily agree with these jokes, but they literally don't understand it. What does that mean? I've never written PHP before. I don't get it.
Yeah, I know.
And they don't get the fact that with PHP, it was a language that ran on the server side that then generated HTML, and now you have HTML. And that's basically what you're doing with React. This whole concept of PHP is lost on the vast majority of like newcomers to web. Because again, the definition of web is client only. As far as like we even talk about like web platform, like Google Chrome folks, right? They talk about
Yeah.
HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I love that you mentioned maybe we should start introducing the server as a core piece of this stack because so far it hasn't been done, and I think the
Really,
industry is worse off for it.
if you think web, you don't think about like the you need a server to like give you the HTML at least.
Well, I think of I and the people I speak to at conferences think of web platform as a collective platform of technologies on which you build for the web. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Like, and this is even the meme. Use the platform, right?
Yeah.
In use the platform, I don't see a server in the platform. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't
Interesting.
know. I don't know that others do either.
Yeah.
Do you?
It, well, it's funny. Also, just about this subject, it's maybe funny to know that the talk I gave at Armada JS was titled "Front End is Dead, Long Live Full Stack,"
Mm,
and it was about this whole thing about how new frameworks are going all the way full stack, right?
yeah.
Next.js, Remix, Nux, Solid Start, Qwik, all of them are need you to understand the concept of the server, right?
Yes.
Even React now becoming RSC, you need to understand the concept of the server. So you can, again, you can. I'm not saying do or don't. I'm not saying like anyone do what's right for them, but I think it's paramount and important for web developers anyway, and any like developer coming in to understand these concepts because some fundamentals are what kind of build your knowledge upward and upward. And
Yeah.
and if you don't know these things, sometimes you need to kind of restart yourself. And this is kind of the Cartesian approach. And here's my philosophy studies coming to kind of help me out. It's like if your foundations are bad, you need to destroy them and start from the beginning and kind of build it up slowly. And I myself kind of had that happen to me during my journey as a developer. At some point, like when I started off, I didn't really understand how JavaScript works. Like I understood HTML somewhat. I knew how to put an H1 and an image and whatnot, and a little bit of CSS. And I beat code with the stick to make it work and do something on a WordPress site or whatever. But I had a very big gap in my knowledge. And at some point, I decided to do something. And about a decade ago, I went and did a boot camp, like
Mm.
front end boot camp that went dove deep into JavaScript and how it all works and all the connected dots. I think it was very important for me to kind of have that baseline, like go back to like first principle thinking, like what is this
Yeah.
thing and how
In
does
that
this
in
work?
that yeah, in
Go
that
ahead.
boot camp, did they teach you server stuff?
Yes, we did go over Node.js, for example. Yeah, it was part of the
Nice.
curriculum. So yeah, the instructors, which in the like later on became friends, also were just built the curriculum properly. They thought
That's
about okay,
awesome.
it's important to kind of understand how this thing works. So
What year was that boot camp?
2014, 2015, kind of.
Okay. Man, that's
Yeah,
great. That's excellent. Good. I'm happy. I would love to see more, like especially when you talk about like building on the web and building like websites, have a server be part of that discussion. I think it hasn't also because like static websites are so prevalent, right? You would probably build static, but now we need a server to build static. You
right.
need some Node.js server to like generate stuff and spit it out. So cool. Let's spend some time talking about this big announcement you made. Well, I would say yesterday, but this episode will not be published like
Yeah, yeah,
instantly.
right.
At the
Obviously.
time of recording yesterday. Tell me about this big announcement.
So the big announcement is like I've mentioned is that Qwik is becoming a completely open source project that is just like detached from Builder. Builder is still
Hmm.
remaining a major sponsor of the project, but we want to bring it over to the community. We want more contributors to come in. We want more companies to take part in what is this, in my opinion, a groundbreaking new technology that is helping to move the web forward. And already we're seeing some other people think like that, and that is why like Angular and Wiz are doing this thing because this is pushing the web and the platform forward. It's making things easier to kind of work with, making the web more performant. And also with Google just releasing changing Core Web Vitals and bringing in INP, I think Qwik is very in the right space to kind of address that exact situation and have great INP scores for any like new and upcoming products that are being built. And we already have, look, we've gotten to 20,000 GitHub stars now.
Oh,
And we
nice.
have, yeah, and we have companies that are starting to use it in production. And we want the community to be more involved. We want more contributions. We want people to kind of take this. This is not just a builder project. This is a project for the larger web, for the community, right? So that is what we're trying to do. And the community told us, listen, like we want a bigger ecosystem. So cool. So for the ecosystem, um, Builder and not just Builder and the people involved around Qwik have been helping out in building Qwik UI, which is a UI component library with two kind of options to use. One is a headless option that is kind of like Radix UI style, but another option is like the styled option, which is kind of inspired by Shatcien, that can have all the stuff that like the headless one has, but with styles, and that you can kind of just run a command line operation and have the code like generated to you within your project, or you can copy paste the code, and that's just a great thing. And then you could like tweak it around to fit the way you need. So that is one community tool. Other than that, something else that really helps the ecosystem is like something that is built into Qwik, which is React Quickify, the
Mm.
Quickify function, which allows you to actually run React code within a Qwik application as an island. And we have more community projects similar to that, which is like the qwik-angular, which allows you to render Angular components within Qwik. And there's also work on qwik-vue. So that is what we're doing, and we're trying to kind of get more ecosystem projects like these going. And if we open up like the stage and bring in more people to help out, whether it's more contributors that'll have an easier time to contribute to the code base, and more companies sponsoring, this will be able to kind of become this big thing. It's already kind of big, right? 20K GitHub stars. I know it's some sort of vanity metric, but it shows that people
Yeah.
care about it. I'm guessing
Yeah.
it's some sort of indication.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a big thing. But also around that, we're also taking the Discord, the Builder Discord, and we're converting it completely to a Qwik Discord. We're
Mm.
creating that community. We're also gonna move like um, um maybe it's worth mentioning Qwik 2.0 that we've mentioned a few times. Qwik 2.0 is gonna have no breaking API changes. The only breakage we're gonna have is the npm package name is going to change. It's not going to live under the at builder.io/qwik. It's going to be under qwik-dev. So we get basically having a new organization to have all Qwik projects live under, and that way they're more accessible to all the community. And we're working on a new governance model. We're going to open up an open collective and try to compensate all the contributors that put in their time, their free time to do this, and truly make this something that is, from the community, by the community, and to push the web forward. And I'm really, really
But
excited about this.
yeah, that's quite noble, because I can understand a lot of concerns around if it's owned and managed by Builder.io. It's what happens if, look, 9 out of 10. I don't know. I don't even know if this is true. But a lot of people say 9 out of 10 startups fail. What if Builder.io fails? Obviously, I don't want that. I think nobody wants that, except your competitors. So I guess Sanity wants that. I don't know. No, don't quote me. Anyway,
I'll go ahead.
but uh, yeah, nobody wants that. And if they fail, then what does that mean for Qwik? And I feel like this answers a lot of those questions, right? Like the project
Right.
is not owned by Builder; it's owned by the
No.
community. So if the company and the project are separate, that probably had to have been one of the decisions, or one of
Right.
the factors
Exactly.
going into the decision, right?
Yes, it's one of the factors. It's also something that kind of Mishko envisioned for a while. Like
Mm.
Mishko, okay, worth mentioning. I don't know if we said that. Mishko Hevery is the creator of Qwik. He is also
And
the
Angular.
creator of Angular and AngularJS and Karma and other really cool stuff. But I feel like maybe this is kind of what he envisioned because he had a bad experience with what happened to Angular in his view, which Angular still is under Google completely, right? You have people that are working on Google, a lot of their products are built with Angular, and it it is known, and it is a Google product, right? And a Google library. Again, and nobody is scared that Google's going to go away because Google
Yeah.
basically ruled the internet, right? So it's fine. But then again, seeing a new framework come to fruition and be born out of a lot of love and hard labor and a lot of thought and effort behind it, I think he wanted from the start to make sure that it is about the community. It is about
Mm.
being truly open source. Like open source software should be open source, right? It should be completely free and open and at the hands of the people that use it.
Yeah.
So it just made more sense in terms of the project and for it to kind of grow and bring in like
Yeah.
the love of the people.
I think you draw a really great line here between businesses and open source, because not only is Angular a Google-owned property, and it's MIT licensed, so in some cases this ownership doesn't matter so much, but also
Well,
React by Facebook or Meta
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, and I think that's fine because it's open source, but it does mean certain things for the decision making and the direction of the project, right?
Right.
I think if you, especially if you have like a massive community, like millions of contributors, arguing over or prioritizing which pull requests do we merge, which issues do we tackle, ultimately this is going to have to be a decision that affects the bottom line of Google or Meta in the case of Angular and React. And so I guess the value for Builder here is, or maybe the opposite of value for Builder is, in this case, since the community fully rules Qwik, then prioritization of issues and work may sometimes conflict with what would best help Builder, and this is
Right.
okay.
Yeah, and this is okay. Again, this is not about like a willy-nilly decision to say, okay, this is
Yeah,
completely open source. Uh, Whoever the computers are. No, we're going to work on a governance model. The core team is still going to be there. We have more core team members that have joined lately, and I want to give out a shout out to Wood Martinez, Jack Shelton. We just had also Arlan join the core team. People are putting in the effort, and just because they're excited about the technology,
yeah,
they they're just doing it on their free time, and they're killing it. They're killing it. They
yeah,
really have brought forward a lot of cool new features and work that has been done. And maybe it's worth just mentioning, like we said, Qwik 2.0 is not going to have any breaking API changes, but it's going to be more efficient, leaner. The HTML payload is going to be even smaller because there's going to be no more of the comments that were used to kind of tell like the quick loader where it's at. It's going to be serialized into really like smaller strings that kind of correlate and map out the references and what they need, and kind of a hash map that Michiko created that kind of has numbers and letters, and they're like really small strings. So from like 2, 3 comments that had a lot of like text string in it, it's become like 5 characters.
wow,
So it's pretty
wow.
cool. Yeah.
So this, does that then affect the size of the quick loader as well, which is 1 kilobyte of JavaScript? It's going to be what,
No,
like 500
no,
bytes now?
it's still the same quick loader because the logic there is not different too much
Okay,
to my recollection. Again, this is still being worked on,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there might be
That
that
may
we're,
be
we're
the. I was just going to say that may be the next target, for making things smaller and faster, right?
yeah, but also on the roadmap for Quick 2.0, not 2.0, but 2.x is out of order streaming
Mm,
and a better micro front-end story. So quick, the way Quick works, it has also these quick containers which hold in the stuff, and that's what also allow us to do like the island for React and Angular and whatnot. And it's also a great kind of mindset and good way to render microfrontends. So we have a few demos that already work with, but it's a little bit cumbersome, and it's still not aligned with our philosophy of making it really easy to do. And there is some manual steps you need to take to work on it. And another core team member, which a huge shout out, he's done amazing work around Qwik and Party Town as well, is Giorgio Boa. And
oh yeah.
Georgia just made this really cool demo that shows micro front ends and a recreation of TikTok, where the whole upload part is a different app, and you have like this vertical split and horizontal split with micro front ends. But micro front ends is a complicated topic that I don't want us to go into because we're talking in general, like macro level and not granular right now about it. So we're working on a microfront story to be much better. Also, documentation still needs some work. That honestly, like, always needs work in almost any project that I've seen. Tutorial needs some work, like because the start of Quick, like the road to V1 was really led by mostly Mishko, Manu, and Adam. They were almost the only ones that were working on it. They were the only ones that knew what was going on, and they were working and did an amazing job to get it to fruition and make it stable, make it something that you can use. Now, in
Mm,
order to kind of bring in people and allow Quick to thrive, there needs to be some cleanup to do some
yeah,
order, make stuff a little bit more comprehensible and coherent in terms of how the code is structured, not long functions that are like, the kind of like a diary of a madman. I imagine myself like Manu and Mishka just typing away
yeah,
like
yeah,
really, really quickly and
yeah.
just getting it out there, like smoke coming out of the keyboard.
Yeah.
No, no, now it's time to kind of bring it in,
Yeah.
look at a project, and this is an evolution of any
Yeah.
software project, right? It's
Yeah.
all right, ship it first, iterate, make it better, make it more performant, even more,
Yeah.
tweak it, DX. Products is usually UX. Here it's DX and UX.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really cool what's
Sounds
coming
like
up.
lots of good DevRel work lined up for you and your team. I'm excited to see this get better and to maybe even start playing in the community. I want to circle back. You mentioned two things that I think
Hmm.
listeners would be interested to know a little bit more about.
Sure.
One is you say Qwik 2.0. Actually, not even Qwik 2.0, but Qwik is well positioned to help developers and users get a better INP score. INP is fairly recent, so I wonder if you could maybe a couple sentences about INP and how Qwik can help with that.
Okay, so for those who don't know what INP is, so Core Web Vitals is the metrics that Google uses to kind of rank um, websites for performance. And in the past, it had different metrics. It had CLS, FID. Help me out if I'm forgetting something, Tejas. I always like all these acronyms always
Let's
get me
maybe use
confused.
the full form. So CLS is cumulative layout shift.
Mid layout
It's
shift,
how much your layout, like how much your
like
elements jump
Jenks,
around. Right.
right?
And FID is first input
With
delay.
input delay,
That's how long does it take before you can enter a keystroke
and that
successfully.
is right, and that is the metric that is going away and being replaced by INP, which is interaction to next pane. So now what they want to do, interaction to next page, is about not only the first time a user clicks, but subsequent clicks and how fast the interaction happens. If I'm not mistaken, I'm still
Yeah. So is that how fast the UI takes to respond to an event?
to a click. I think
Okay.
that is the correct definition of it. So
Awesome.
I think
I
quick is
interaction to next paint. Okay. So the time between your click and the update. Sorry, I'm just trying to like make this
yeah.
understandable for everybody.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. I'm with you. It's something that again the Google team, the Chrome team, and Chrome web people working
Yeah.
on the web platform and Chrome are also working to explain it. And these metrics are not easy to explain always, right?
Yeah.
Even like cumulative layout shift, even just the name is
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
But I can think of a really great case for really poor INP, right? If you have like a long list of like 10,000, 30, 40, 50,000 elements and you want to run a filter on these lists, on this list, excuse me, then when you type a keystroke into the input, that list is going to take like a few seconds to update. So that's your input to next paint. The next paint meaning the new list update takes a lot longer from the relative to the time of input. So I sort of see it that way. I hope this is what the name suggests to me is how it works. And so in that case, would not then signals be the best primitive for this because they allow for fine-grained updates and therefore less processing.
Yes. I think you're correct. That is why also Solid is performing amazingly, right, on a lot of benchmarks and stuff because signals are not only the future, they're the present. And
Yeah,
it's not
nice.
by that case that the TC39 are looking into bringing signal into the web platform itself and being like a core primitive of the browser.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it in Node too? I'm not sure. I don't think so. It
Uh,
can't be.
I
It's
don't.
just first client. It's just platform.
Yeah, it's still under heavy discussion. We actually have an episode with the chair of TC39 coming out
Oh,
sometime soon,
cool.
and we talk about some of that stuff. So I'm excited about it. Thank you for clarifying that. How is Qwik helpful there? Is it because Qwik uses signals, or is there something I'm missing?
So both that it uses signals and both that it is like instantly interactive because all the HTML is already serialized and all your JavaScript chunks are already streamed into your service worker and waiting for your cache and just need to be lazily executed. There's no time there's no need to execute the JavaScript. Like the execution is only during the interaction, right? So
But I want to push back on this a little bit because as far as I understand INP, and maybe I don't understand INP, which in this case, all of what I'm about to say is invalid.
again, I'm
W-
not sure I understand INP completely either. I
good,
don't know, right? Like
good.
nobody has the metrics of what is good INP except for Google
Yeah.
folks right now.
Good. So let's let the blind lead the blind here with the disclaimer for listeners. Like this is probably wrong, but like if it's wrong, then leave a comment and get someone from Google to come on the podcast and clarify. That'd be so cool. But so what I think, because INP is input to next paint, and next paint meaning the new list update takes a lot longer from the relative to the time of input. So I sort of see it that way. I hope this is wrong. Like if it's wrong, then leave a comment and get someone from Google to come on the podcast and clarify. That'd be so cool. But so what I think, because INP is then it would
And
mean in the case of Qwik, you click on something, and Qwik may be even worse at INP here because you click on something and then Qwik has to load the module if it's from service worker cache. Regardless, it still has to load the module, parse the module, execute the module. All of this is much slower than update a signal. And so this is why I'm wondering how it makes INP better. And maybe it's just a misunderstanding of INP on my side. I want to be clear, but if that is the definition of INP,
could be. But again, goes back to also what is more likely for a user to interact with and having
lazy. What is it? Lazy evaluation.
lazy execution,
Yeah.
right? And also being able to predict what is the next interaction the user is going to take, so you can even eagerly load parts of the JavaScript, so it'll be faster and ready. So this ideally, and in our vision, it's going to happen automatically. It's going to understand, okay, this is above the fold. This is there's, I don't know, a newsletter click, and also this stuff is it's going to feed back into the system, right? The more you use a Qwik app, the more learning you can have via Qwik Insights, the more it can learn about the system and improve the performance and know what are the chunks that might be loaded slower, and then just bring them ahead of time. So
yeah, that's so good. It
again,
sounds like
time will tell. Time will tell.
But it's so interesting that Qwik has this really. I have a new appreciation for the class of problem that Qwik solves, because on the surface it looks like cool. Qwik just solves lazy loading, but it's not. That's not the full story, because lazy loading. It's not just lazy loading. It's lazy loading most things, but eagerly loading some things to optimize user experience, right? You want to predict the next thing that's likely to be loaded and load and execute that immediately, even if it's eager. So it's balancing like lazy and eager, which is such an interesting engineering problem to solve.
It is. It's. I think that is like exactly what it's trying to solve. It's just the fact that you don't need to manually think about that thing, and it'll just freaking work. Right?
Just work, yeah. Can we talk about this is the last technical thing I'll ask you. You mentioned out of order streaming for Qwik 2.0. What is that? I'm sure there's listeners
not
going
2.0, 2.x. I'm not saying it's going to be 2.0. It might be 2.1, 2.2. I'm not sure yet. So yeah. So out of order streaming is somewhat of a trend nowadays. Everybody's talking about it. Next.js have been working and insinuated about it, and these are like streaming in HTML parts, not in the order that are necessarily like the pages, but by the data that's being loaded into the HTML. And correct me if I'm not explaining this right, or leave a comment, or Tejas is gonna correct me in a second. So right now, in Qwik, there are different methods to load data into your components. So we have route loaders, and we have resource, and use resource, which is a hook that is a way to kind of use a resource component to load it in. So right now, the way that it works is until it doesn't get the data, a component won't render unless it got that data. So if you have like a resource and below it some more HTML, just static HTML, it's not going to render the below content of the static HTML until it gets it. So it has in order streaming. So it's waiting for all the data till it can stream down the HTML. Out of order streaming is going to let you have kind of similar to what a suspense boundary within React is, where you can kind of show something else, a fallback before, load whatever data comes in, whatever like promise has been resolved, and the data can already stream in and then render in the HTML. So auto streaming is going to allow to bring in whatever is ready to the HTML.
Which may be like skeleton UI, it doesn't matter, like some type of loading state.
Exactly. Instead of just blocking like the rendering of the HTML.
So it's basically suspense for the React listeners.
Somewhat. There's also some talk within the Qwik core team, and this is by Patrick JS, if you know him, and he really wants to kind of see if we can have a story for Qwik server components and have kind of something that is similar, just so people feel at home and they feel they have something familiar to come to.
I guess this is why I was a little bit confused about out of order streaming, because the name is sort of a misnomer, and I'll tell you why. It sort of feels like serverless to me, because if you have a suspense boundary, then it's in order. Like you render this, you yield the suspense boundary, and then you keep going.
Mhm.
That's the order. The natural order is data is not fetched, so serve the boundary and keep serving. And then when data is fetched, make an update later. So it's not out of order streaming. The way I understand it is we 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 skip the natural order and do things out of order. But the natural order is like you just ship the boundary and then keep going. So thank you for clarifying. That's super helpful. You mentioned Qwik server components. Qwik has server components, no? As far as I know, there's this thing called
Yes.
server dollar that I saw.
Right. No, so server dollar is not a server component, right? It's just a function that always runs on the server.
But if a Qwik component is just a function, then
You could return JS6 from it and,
I
and
mean,
get some stuff, right? It's some
yeah,
sort again, it's a whimsical way of saying, I don't know, do we need it? Do we not need it? Right? So like you
yeah,
said, you already have server dollar. You can return HTML from it. Maybe we don't need it. Maybe that's good enough.
yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. It's still, we're working these things out. We want like the developer experience to do it. So if React Server Component is something that, again, to me, it still doesn't completely click. But if someone feels like it clicks for them better, and if he has a quick server component to use as kind of a ready-made component that it's going to work like he knows from the React ecosystem,
Yeah.
if it's going to help him, why not? Maybe you'll have it
I
as
think,
a like another package.
yeah. I feel like it's just fundamentally opposed to Qwik entirely because Qwik is server first. Qwik doesn't generate a client bundle at all, as far as I know. Like there is no, you said it yourself, 1 kilobyte, no client bundle, just the optimizer or the
Yeah,
loader,
just
excuse me.
packets, a lot of JavaScript packets, like
Yeah.
different modules.
So exactly. So there's no bundle. There's various modules or packets, and so server components only make sense if you have a bundle to split out. Like, okay, this is my client bundle, and you load that
But
and then do hydration. So
there could be a bundle. It depends on like what the insights are. So there's also another community project called qwik-PWA, which allows you to generate the progressive web app from your Qwik application. So if you're rendering a progressive web app, you do need a bundle to have everything ready to be offline first. So again, depends. It's in your control. You could kind of say, like the whole hero section and like the search filter for this thing is in one bundle, is in
mm,
one like packet. Like this is what Quick Insights is gonna allow you to kind of. We need these two together in a bundle, right? I need to take these packets and put them together and kind of bundle them together to one packet because it's more likely a user is going to use all of this, right? So,
yeah.
but not necessarily. Again, it could be all these little packets.
But
So
I feel like in that case, what you just described, this like little header and content, that's a server component. No,
yeah,
what am
yeah,
I
it
missing?
is.
Wow. Okay. So I guess it's somewhat you could, I guess you could make the marketing claim if you wanted that Qwik supports server components and then clarify later because like if you tell me that I'll believe you because like you just described it. So um
Yeah, again, but
anyway,
it's not React server components. Everything is a
yes,
server
yes,
component and quick. So again,
yeah.
if we've confused you with this like little take, like
Leave a
shoot
comment.
us a DM, leave a comment,
Yeah,
DM on Twitter, and we'll try
yeah.
and explain it better.
Awesome. We're just about to wrap up, Yoav. I want to give you the stage to bring to attention anything we maybe haven't. This is an episode for you and for the listeners, and I really want you to feel free to share anything that you feel is more important that we maybe haven't talked about. For example, we did talk about Qwik 2.0 and the announcement. Maybe there's something we missed.
Um, I think we've covered really a lot of things here. Like, so
This
I
is
was trying
good.
to rack my brain, see what we haven't covered. But we can
Good.
kind of just mention other things in the web ecosystem that I think are important. Like,
Yeah.
so we've mentioned progressive web apps and how there's quick PWA, and there's this whole, I don't know, you probably know this, but the whole story about Apple trying to kill
Oh
PWAs,
yeah.
and that is just something that annoys me so much because I've been waiting for years now for to be able to build like just web apps that can be installed on your phone. I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with all the rest of the compiling and bundling or Electron or React Native or Cordova or Ionic. Like the web technology allows you to do this stuff. Like, God damn it, Tim Apple, why are you doing this? You know?
Yeah. But they reversed that decision though. Like it's not.
They reversed the decision, but it's only in the EU, and I've heard that people have problems. It's so murky waters,
Yeah.
and you're trying to understand, and I don't know if it works or not, but let's just say this is a call out to Apple and just give us PWAs on your ecosystems, please.
We
Like
actually
especially
have,
like Vision Pro and how like spatial computing.
yeah.
Fine, let us use WebXR for that, you know?
Yeah, no, we actually have an episode with one of the people who work at Apple's worldwide developer relations team. So this is really a fun discussion where we talk about all of that,
Cool.
the
Definitely
Digital
check that
Markets
out.
Act and so on. Yeah, listen, Yoav, I know it's been a long time. As you mentioned, we covered a lot of content, and I know it's not maybe easy to take such a big amount of time out of your day to come spend time with me and the listeners. So I genuinely want to like extend a word of thanks. I mean, you covered Qwik, you covered Builder.io, you talked about the motivation and the plans for the future, and even like topics like INP and server components. Honestly, it's such a wealth of information. And on behalf of me and the listeners, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing this with us.
And thank you very much for having me and just calling me out. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining my discussion with Yoav Ganbar. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you learned a lot about Qwik, Party Town, Mitosis, Builder.io, and I hope you're excited for the fact that Qwik is now fully open source and run by the community. I can't wait for you to get involved, and I can't wait to hear what you build. If you're learning from and or enjoying this podcast, I'd invite you, if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, and leave a comment. Tell me how I did, what you want to see. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, then I'd invite you to leave up to a 5-star review because that stuff really helps the podcast surface, but it also helps me understand if it's useful because it's quite a bit of effort, and if you're not using it, then I'm wasting my time. So it's a huge help. If you also want to share this on social media, I'd see that also as a positive sign. So I'd invite you to do all of those things. Finally, I hope you enjoyed once again the discussion. I can't wait to see you in the next one. And until then, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being a part of this podcast, and thank you for your interest in engineering.